So let me introduce our presenter briefly. So our keynote presenter today is Mr. Wilson Cole from Netherlands, and he's the CTO at Suzume Kabushiki Kaisha. He is an entrepreneur living in Tokyo, and he's a robotic engineer, and he will present about how to clean up our world with robotics. So please welcome Mr. Wilson Cole. And Wilson, could you share your screen?
Yes, and let me see, share screen. But this will stop your share screen. So you should be seeing my slides now, right?
Yes, I can see that.
Okay, so I'll start the presentation. Yeah, thank you, Morikawa-san, for the introduction. So I'm Wilson. I'm from Suzume. Suzume is a very small startup that was launched not too long ago. And some time ago, I talked to Morikawa-san about our ideas. And he thought that it would be a good, interesting idea to hold this online brainstorming session, which we will have after this presentation, on the question about how to clean up our world with robotics. So yeah, thank you for being here, and I hope that we can have an interesting discussion afterwards. But let me first shortly introduce ourselves. So we are two engineers. So there's Ping on the left, the founder of this company. He founded the company about 1 year ago. And there's me on the right. And I joined this company about 1 to 2 months ago. But we actually go way back. So we're both born and raised in the Netherlands. And we met each other when we were studying at the University of Delft in the Netherlands, where Ping was studying aerospace engineering and I did computer science. We both went on to specialize in sustainable energy technology and robotics, respectively, started working in respective fields, and then came independently to Japan, Tokyo in 2017. And most recently, we decided to launch our business together. So what do we do, and what are we interested in? So of course, there's our backgrounds in robotics, in airport systems design, and also in renewable energy. But we're also interested in the environment and in office automation. And this may seem like a very random bunch of topics, but if you think about it, there's actually a common theme here, which is waste. So for environment, it's very obvious, like all the waste in the environment is just trash. And with renewable energy, we try to reduce the usage of fossil fuels, which are already very scarce. With robotics, we try to prevent a different type of waste, which is labor waste, because why would people do certain trivial tasks which can be done by robots? I mean, people can focus on other things that robots cannot do. So robots can just take all the trivial tasks, and we think that it's wasted for people to work on all these trivial, boring tasks. Office automation is an entirely different area, but well, there's the Japanese term muda. So for those who don't know what it means, it's basically refers to waste in business operations. So you want to be as efficient as possible and reduce any waste of resources that you allocate to your business processes. And for airport system design, well, you can imagine that airports need to be very efficient. Of course, they have hundreds of thousands of people coming through every day. So inefficiencies just don't help there. And you want to design it optimally. So in a nutshell, we basically just don't like waste in any way. And we try to prevent and reduce waste as a business. And today I was asked to talk about the combination of these two topics, so robotics and environment. So on one hand, there are the environmental problems, and on the other hand, well, there's hopefully, at least hopefully, part of the solution that may help. So let me first give you some background information about the problem, which is the environmental problem. So there are many environmental problems, first of all, but an example is the plastic pollution. problem, which is a very famous one and very big one that I think that we should tackle. So today I will mostly focus on the plastic pollution problem. So let me share some fast facts with you, which come from the report by Pew Trust in this link. So according to this report, 11 million metric tons of plastic leaked into the ocean in 2016. And it is predicted to almost triple in 2040 if we don't do anything. And 40% of today's global plastic waste ends up in the environment. And this will only get worse by 2040. So it's predicted that plastic generation by 2040 will double. And the plastic leakage into the ocean will triple. And the amount of plastic that we'll have in the ocean will almost quadruple. And you may think that we're already on the right path on solving these issues, like there's government plans and big companies that try to do something about this, but that's actually not entirely true. So even if we implement all of the efforts by government in the industry, even if we manage to implement all of it, we will only achieve 7% reduction of leakage by 2040. And the report also speaks of financial risk to the industry under business as usual in 2040, which is estimated to be 100 billion US dollars. So there is actually a business incentive to do this. So if you don't do this, you'll have larger costs in the future and it will only get worse and worse. An interesting thing is also that they state that we can already achieve an 80% plastic leakage reduction by 2040 with today's technology. So there's really no excuse anymore. There's really something that we need to do right now. So you may hear some people saying that maybe there's no business incentive or it's very difficult to earn money in this industry, but that's not entirely true. So first of all, you can reduce costs. And to me, the report speaks of financial risk, but I see a market opportunity, a market that's worth 100 billion US dollars. And basically, if you manage to address this problem, then I think that there's potential for business there. And there's also no excuse anymore about how we cannot do it with today's technology. Actually, there are many things that we can do. You just need to look at the right place. So these are some general facts. And you may think that the plastic pollution problem is mainly in countries like Southeast Asia, which is true, which is where the biggest problem is. But on the other hand, the problem is also much closer than you think. So we are based in Japan. So let me also share some facts about the pollution problem in Japan. So these facts come from these links here. So basically, Japan ranks second globally in the volume of single-use plastic waste per person. And the microplastics around Japanese seas is about 27 times the world average. So microplastics are basically like, think of very small pieces of plastic that you cannot, well, you can still see it with eye, but it's very difficult to scoop up. So for example, tire dust or small piece of paint, for example, or just very small piece of plastic. And in Tokyo, each person generates close to 1 kilogram of waste every day. And in Tokyo, there are 23 wards. And this means that if every person generates 1 kilogram waste every day, that means 3 million tons of solid waste each year from only the 23 wards. And you may think that this comes from companies, from businesses, but that's also not true. So according to these reports, about 70% of this waste comes from households, while the other 30% comes from shops and offices. So how does this look like? So this Tokyo Dome, this stadium here in Tokyo, this means that the 23 wards of Tokyo together create 7.4 times the amount of waste that, so basically you can fill 7.4 times Tokyo Dome with the waste that we generate every year. So it's actually a very important problem that we need to solve. And it's also much closer than you think. So Now that I hopefully have stressed enough how important it is to address this problem, the question is then, what can we do with robots? So as a robotics engineer, I can tell you that a lot of things are possible and a lot of things are also not. But the real question is, of course, what is really necessary in order to tackle this problem? So I'm not going to pretend that I'm a plastic expert just by reading some reports, but I can tell you from a robotics point of view, what we can do and what we can't. But we don't want to make the mistake of making a solution and then basically discovering afterwards that it's not really helping the problem. So I think that the best we can do is talk to people in the industry and try to understand the problems. And that's not just for robotics experts, right? I mean, for everyone who wants to make a solution, it's best to first listen to the potential clients, listen to the problem, and try to see how you can contribute to the solution in your own way. So on one hand, try to talk to the people in the industry, but on the other hand, also try to share your knowledge and expertise with everyone and try to discuss together what the possibilities are. I think that's the only way forward. So that's also one of the reasons why I did this, decided to do this presentation. So let me start with sharing some of my basic knowledge. So what can we do with robots? Well, we can help develop systems that potentially reduce costs. So robots are already used in, for example, the car industry, where automation already helps with reducing costs by producing millions of these items each year. And sometimes it's also not only about cost, but sometimes it's also about whether you want to do this as a human being or not. So robots are very good at doing repetitive, boring tasks with high accuracy and precision. And we believe that, of course, sometimes humans can also do it. But if you can leave it to a robot, then people can basically focus on other things that are more important than, for example, standing next to a conveyor belt and doing the same operation every day, which is very boring and repetitive. On the other hand, robots can also be used in dangerous or difficult to access terrain, not only on land, but also in the air, on the water, under the ground. And this is very good for exploration and inspection. And finally, they're also becoming smarter with the power of AI. So they are currently already able to learn from example or learn how to solve problems on the spot by using AI. But what does it mean more specifically for the environment? So most people, of course, if they think about robots and the environment, they mostly think about directly cleaning the environment, right? So for example, there's this robot here that picks up garbage and puts it in the trash bin, or there's this underwater drone that scoops plastic and waste from the water. But of course, if they can do this in a financially feasible way and also in a technically effective way, then that's all very great. But usually that's not the case. So, so I'm not saying that robots should not do this, but we should also think about like, is this the best way to use robots to clean the environment? Of course, if we can do it in a nice way, then it will be nice. But there's probably also a reason why not so many of these systems exist. So we need to think beyond just directly cleaning the environment. But there's more that robots can do. So they don't always need to be on the forefront of the solution. So for example, they can also help optimize existing processes and make them less wasteful. So take, for example, the plastic recycling problem again. So some people don't know that colored plastics are very difficult to recycle, for example. And particularly black plastic is very difficult to recycle. And the reason is that in many of these recycling plants, they use infrared sensors, which cannot detect black plastic. And this is the only reason that's not being recycled. And well, I think that's really a waste, because coming from the robotics and AI industry, I know that with just a cheap camera, you can already detect black plastic. So just by simply using today's state-of-the-art AI technologies, we can already prevent situations like this where black plastic is not being recycled at all. So optimize existing processes and make them less wasteful. The other way of helping is, of course, to help manufacture clean, reusable products in a cheaper and better way. So robots are already used in factories, and the best thing that that they can do is actually manufacturing. And if you think about it, like these kind of silicon reusable products or edible straws, they also just need to be manufactured in a factory. And yeah, perhaps with the power of robotics, we can try to make these production processes cheaper and better, and try to push more for these kind of clean products. And another thing that robots can do is inspection. So I was talking to some investors in the blue technology sector, and one of them actually told me that inspection is very important because well, to inspect means that you know how the process works, and knowledge is directly tied to regulation. So for example, this robot here is doing visual inspection of these offshore oil platforms. So oil platforms are very dangerous places for people to be because they can explode at any time. But you also want to constantly inspect them before an environmental disaster happens at sea. So just because it's dangerous doesn't mean that you don't need to inspect them. And that can be perfectly done with these robots, which patrol these platforms 24/7 and well, look for leakages, for example, or defects. Another example are chimneys, for example, which are very high, very dangerous and difficult for people to reach. So we can use drones to inspect these kind of chimneys, mostly used in factories before they damage the environment in any way. So I hope that you have a kind of like an idea now what robots can do and how they can potentially help in the environment. But that's of course not enough, right? I mean, we need more concrete ideas. So well, with this presentation, I hope to give you some some foothold for our discussion up next on talking about how robots can help in cleaning the environment. And we don't need to talk only about robots, of course. So I'm talking about robots because that's my expertise. But in general, we want to talk about all kinds of technologies or how each of us can help in our own way in reducing waste in the environment. So as a guideline, maybe we can think about how robots and other technologies can help us in using less resources or in manufacture cleaner products or in improving the way we handle waste. So yeah, let's start the discussion after the presentation using these 3 points as guidelines. And also, if you recognize some of the things that I talked about, so maybe you're running a business, you want to go more green using automation, or you know somebody who could benefit, please mention it also during the discussion. So that was my presentation. Thank you for listening. Again, we're entrepreneurs ready to clean the planet. Let us know of any opportunities where automation can help in becoming more sustainable. And I hope that we can start to have a fruitful discussion up right next. Thank you.